The alien ship hovered silently over Earth, its sleek form cutting through the endless expanse of space. For years, the advanced beings had observed this planet, an enigma, a jewel among countless stars, filled with life and mystery. They knew Earth as a place of danger. Its atmosphere was volatile, its surface ravaged by natural disasters, and its inhabitants constantly at war with each other. Yet, there was something about Earth that intrigued them, something they couldn't quite grasp. And today, they were about to discover what truly made this world a death world. We've studied this planet for centuries. We know their history. But we've never seen anything like this. The voice echoed inside the control room of the alien ship. The leader of the exploration team, Zynar, spoke with a mix of awe and disbelief. His race had traveled to countless planets, but nothing had prepared him for the shocking truth he was about to uncover. The team of aliens had arrived with a simple mission: observe, gather data, and return home. But as they studied Earth's history, they began to notice inconsistencies, patterns that didn't make sense. It was as though Earth was a place of destruction by design, yet, despite everything, humanity had thrived. This was not just a world of danger, it was a world that had learned to adapt, to survive, to fight back against all odds. The images on the screens flickered, revealing centuries of human conflict. Wars that spanned continents, disasters that wiped out millions, and yet, the human race continued. But something caught Zynar's attention, a small, seemingly insignificant moment in Earth's recent history, hidden away among the chaos. This can't be true, he murmured, staring at the data. It was an ancient relic, a message, hidden in the darkest corners of Earth's vast internet network. The message wasn't a record of war or disaster. It was something far more disturbing, a warning. The aliens scanned the message again, their sophisticated systems trying to comprehend the meaning behind it. What they uncovered chilled them to the core. Earth was not just a death trap because of its violent history or unforgiving natural environment. There was something deeper, something far more sinister at play. As the team processed the data, a figure appeared on one of the screens, a man, standing alone, staring at something invisible in the distance. The message attached to the image was simple, yet deeply unsettling: we are not alone, and we are not meant to survive. The aliens exchanged nervous glances. What did this mean? Was it a warning from the past? Or a sign of something yet to come? What is it that we're missing? Zynar whispered, the weight of the revelation hanging heavily in the room. The ship's sensors began to hum louder, as if responding to the gravity of the situation. Earth's true secret was not just about war, not just about the struggle for survival against a harsh world. There was something embedded deep within the fabric of humanity's existence that made them more dangerous than anything the aliens had ever encountered. For a brief moment, Zynar and his team stood frozen, staring at the screen in disbelief. How had they missed this? Then, the message flickered again, this time showing an image of a young child, her eyes wide with terror, her hands gripping the arms of a figure standing protectively beside her. A whisper of sound echoed in the room, a chilling voice on the screen that spoke in a language no one understood, but the tone was clear: fear. Suddenly, everything clicked. Earth wasn't just a death world because of its harsh environment or endless conflicts. It was a death world because humanity had been unknowingly shaped by something far darker. Someone, was pulling the strings from the shadows. It's not them, it's something else. Something we can't see, one of the alien observers said, his voice shaking. Zynar took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The conclusion was undeniable: Earth's greatest threat wasn't just the violence between humans, but an unseen force, an ancient intelligence, shaping their evolution. And the aliens had just uncovered the first clue. But as the team prepared to dive deeper into the mystery, Zynar paused. They had already seen enough to know that their mission was no longer about observation. It was about survival. We need to understand this, now, Zynar said, turning to his crew. "If we don't, Earth could be doomed. And so might we." The ship's engines hummed as they engaged, pulling away from Earth's surface. The true journey had only just begun, and the answers lay somewhere on this chaotic, unpredictable planet. But one thing was certain: whatever they discovered next, it would change everything. As the ship began its descent toward Earth, the first hint of an ancient power began to stir in the depths of the planet. The alien ship, having swiftly left its orbit around Earth, moved deeper into the planet's atmosphere. Zynar and his team were now determined to uncover the origins of Earth's mystery. The message they had uncovered, coupled with the unsettling images of the young girl and the shadowy figure beside her, had only fueled their need for answers. The crew was on edge. Their previous assumption that Earth was simply a planet of survival had been shattered. The ancient warning, coupled with the chilling voice they heard on the recording, pointed to something much more complex, something beyond their understanding. And now, they had to figure out what. Zynar's eyes remained fixed on the screens, his mind racing. The data they had gathered spoke of ancient civilizations, ones that had risen and fallen, with whispers of dark forces intertwined in their very existence. As they delved deeper into Earth's past, they found evidence of something far older than humanity itself. Something buried beneath the surface for millennia. "We've only scratched the surface," Zynar muttered, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "We need to go further down, deeper into the planet. The answers are down there, hidden away." His second-in-command, Vera, looked uneasy. "But the risk is greater the deeper we go. Earth's magnetic fields are unstable. We've seen the data. There's something unnatural, almost as if the planet itself is resisting us." Zynar turned to her, his expression hardening. "We don't have a choice. We have to understand what's making this world a death world. It's not just about humanity. It's about something far bigger, something older. Whatever's down there, we need to uncover it." The ship descended further, skimming across the turbulent surface, avoiding the violent storms that raged below. Earth's atmosphere, with its constant churn of clouds, lightning, and winds, seemed alive in its own chaotic way. Yet, it wasn't the storms that concerned them most, it was the hidden force they knew was beneath the surface. The ancient energy they had yet to comprehend. As the ship reached the edge of the planet's crust, Zynar directed the team to activate their probing systems. Their equipment was advanced, capable of scanning the deep layers of any world they visited, and they could see through the rocky layers that made up Earth's surface. The first readings came in, a series of irregularities beneath Earth's crust. Power surges, abnormal magnetic readings, and unnatural vibrations emanated from a massive, undiscovered network far below. The aliens were prepared for surprises, but this was different. These weren't just geological anomalies. These were signatures of something. "It's alive," Vera whispered, her eyes widening. "This isn't natural. It's organic." Zynar's brow furrowed. He had never seen anything like this before. The energy signals were too organized, too deliberate to be natural. It was as if Earth itself had a heartbeat, a pulse that was neither of this world or any other they had encountered. The ship's scanners zoomed in, pinpointing the source of the strange readings. It was a network, vast, sprawling, and intricately woven beneath the planet's surface. They couldn't pinpoint its exact nature, but they could feel its presence, like a ghost that brushed against their consciousness. The energy wasn't just erratic, it was purposeful, like a vast mind watching, waiting. As the ship's systems processed the data, an image appeared on the main screen, a massive structure hidden deep beneath the Earth. It was unlike anything they had seen before, too ancient, too advanced for anything that could have been built by human hands. "What is this?" Vera's voice trembled with awe. "How is this possible?" Zynar didn't respond immediately. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what they had uncovered. This wasn't just an anomaly, it was something that predated human civilization. And it wasn't just lying dormant. It was active. The structure was alive with energy, and its purpose was far from clear. "We need to investigate further," Zynar said, his tone more commanding than ever. "There's a reason this is hidden. And we need to find out why." The crew moved swiftly, adjusting the ship's course to follow the signals that led them toward the hidden structure. It was deep, much deeper than they had anticipated, and the journey was perilous. The deeper they went, the more their systems began to malfunction, as if the planet itself was resisting their presence. "This isn't normal," Vera muttered, her fingers racing across the control panels. "The magnetic fields are becoming unstable. We can't keep this up much longer." But Zynar was undeterred. "We've come this far. We can't stop now. Whatever this is, it's tied to Earth's Deathworld status. It's the key." Minutes passed, and then hours, until the ship's systems finally stabilized. They had reached their destination, a colossal, alien structure buried deep beneath the Earth, its design unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was as though it had been waiting for them. Zynar's heart raced as the ship hovered above the dark, massive structure. The walls of the structure seemed to pulse, reacting to their presence. The aliens were silent now, unsure of what to do next. "What is this place?" Vera finally whispered, her voice barely audible. Zynar stepped forward, his gaze locked onto the heart of the structure. He didn't have an answer. But he knew one thing: whatever lay inside this monument held the final secret to Earth's true nature. And it was now in their hands to uncover it. The ship hovered in eerie silence above the vast alien structure, its dark, imposing shape pulsating in sync with the strange energy readings now flooding their systems. Every pulse felt like a heartbeat, thudding in time with their own. Zynar and his crew exchanged uncertain glances, each of them knowing this was no ordinary discovery. This was something far greater, and far more dangerous, than they had ever expected. "I don't like this," Vera muttered under her breath, her fingers trembling over the controls. "It feels like we're being watched. Whatever's in there, it's alive." Zynar didn't respond immediately. His focus was on the main screen, where the intricate designs of the structure became clearer. The more he observed, the more unsettling it became. It wasn't just a structure. It was a machine, but not one built for functionality. It seemed alive, like the roots of some ancient organism, burrowing deep into Earth's core. The pulse of energy intensified as they neared. The ship's systems began to pick up unexpected interference. Lights flickered. The magnetic fields that had been unstable earlier began to warp, pulling the ship toward the structure's surface. "We're being pulled in," Vera said, a note of panic creeping into her voice. "We can't break free. The magnetic fields are too strong." Zynar's expression hardened. He wasn't going to let the ship be pulled into whatever this was. He slammed his fist onto the control panel, sending commands through the ship's systems, but it was no use. The ship was caught in an invisible web of force. "Brace yourselves," he said, his voice steady, though the uncertainty in his mind was palpable. "We're going in." The ship began its descent toward the surface of the massive structure, the pull from the unseen forces only growing stronger. For a moment, it felt as though the very air around them thickened, becoming oppressive. The crew held their breath, their hearts racing as they prepared for the unknown. Suddenly, the ship broke through the dense magnetic field and came to a sudden, jarring halt as it landed on a solid platform inside the structure. A door, hidden within the structure's walls, opened automatically, revealing a darkened corridor stretching far ahead. The ship's engines powered down, and a deathly silence filled the air. Only the hum of the strange energy continued to echo around them. "What now?" Vera asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zynar stood up from his command chair, his face set with resolve. "We go in. Whatever is waiting for us in there, we need to understand it." The crew gathered their equipment, preparing for the worst. As they stepped out of the ship, they were immediately struck by the immense scale of the structure. The walls were covered in ancient, alien markings, symbols they didn't recognize, though they seemed to pulse with an eerie light. Zynar led the way, walking cautiously down the dark hallway. His footsteps echoed off the walls, the silence so thick it felt suffocating. At the end of the hallway, they arrived at a massive chamber. It was more like a cathedral than a room, tall, with a vaulted ceiling that seemed to stretch into infinity. In the center of the room was a platform, glowing with a faint, unnatural light. And on that platform lay a massive, dark figure, encased in a crystalline shell. It was humanoid in shape, but its features were distorted, alien. "What is this?" Vera gasped, her voice trembling. "Is this some kind of guardian?" Zynar approached cautiously, his heart pounding. The figure on the platform was like nothing he had ever seen. Its form seemed to flicker in and out of visibility, as though it was shifting between different dimensions. The faint glow from the platform illuminated its strange, jagged features, eyes closed, as if in deep slumber. "I don't think it's a guardian," Zynar replied, his voice quiet. "This thing, it's something else. I think it's tied to the planet itself." The crew gathered around, their eyes locked on the figure, as though it held the answers to everything they had been searching for. But Zynar felt something stirring in his gut, a sense of dread creeping over him. This wasn't just a mysterious relic. It was alive, connected to the very core of Earth. "We have to wake it," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "It knows the truth. It knows why Earth is a death world." Vera stepped forward, hesitant. "Are you sure that's a good idea? We don't know what it could do." Zynar didn't answer. Instead, he approached the platform, his hand reaching for the control panel beside it. The alien symbols on the panel were unfamiliar, but he had seen similar glyphs in the data they had collected from Earth's surface. The ship's scanners had translated them as a kind of code, a language they could barely understand. He pressed a button. The crystalline shell around the figure cracked open, shattering like glass. For a moment, everything was still. Then, with a low, rumbling sound, the figure's eyes opened. They were not human. They were vast, endless, alien beyond comprehension. The figure rose, towering over them. It made no sound, but Zynar felt its presence. It was as though it were inside his mind, its thoughts reverberating through his consciousness. The air around them grew thick with energy, as if the entire structure were coming alive. "You shouldn't have come here," the figure's voice echoed in their minds, sending a chill through their spines. "But now that you are here, you will learn the truth." The chamber pulsed with a low, ominous hum as the towering figure stood before them, its otherworldly eyes scanning each of the crew members. It was not a creature of flesh and blood, but something far older, far more ancient. Zynar's heart raced as its voice reverberated through their minds. "The truth is not what you expect," the figure intoned, its voice deep and resonant. "Earth was not always the death world you believe it to be. It became this way because of what it holds, what you will soon understand." Zynar stepped back, his mind reeling. The air around him seemed to thicken with the weight of what was being said, as though the entire structure was closing in on them. He glanced at Vera, who was wide-eyed with shock, her hands trembling. "What do you mean?" Zynar demanded, his voice firm. "What happened to Earth? Why is it so dangerous?" The figure's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, it seemed to be considering how best to answer. The air around them crackled with an energy so intense that it felt like they were standing at the center of a storm. "Long ago, Earth was a beacon of life," it began, its voice like the grinding of stones. "A thriving world where civilizations coexisted, where the fabric of reality was woven together. But the humans, your species, touched something they should not have. They disturbed the delicate balance that held the world together, and in doing so, they unleashed a force far beyond their comprehension. Xynar felt a chill crawl down his spine. This was not the kind of answer he had expected. Earth was not just a death world by accident, it had been made into one. "We didn't do that," Vera whispered, shaking her head. "We couldn't have." "What force are you talking about?" The figure raised its hand, and suddenly, the entire chamber seemed to shift. The walls around them began to dissolve, revealing a vast expanse, a vast, shattered landscape stretching as far as the eye could see. Images of Earth, not as it was today, but as it had been millennia ago, flashed before their eyes. It was a lush world, teeming with life, a cradle of civilizations unknown to Xynar. But then the images changed, growing darker, twisted. The vibrant cities began to crumble. Massive storms ravaged the land. The earth itself seemed to tear open, revealing molten core beneath, as if the planet itself was dying. The images stopped, and the room returned to its eerie silence. "You see," the figure said softly, its voice laden with sorrow. "Your species unearthed something, an ancient relic hidden deep beneath the earth. It was never meant to be found. The relic is a seed, a living thing, a force that disrupts the very nature of reality. And in unlocking it, you unleashed chaos." Xynar's mind was racing. "A relic," he repeated. "What does it do?" The figure's eyes gleamed with a sorrowful intensity. "It is not the relic that is dangerous, but the power it calls forth. It warps the very fabric of time and space, reshaping everything it touches. Your planet, once harmonious, is now a battlefield between opposing forces, caught in a war that was never meant to be fought." The crew stood in stunned silence, absorbing the gravity of what they were being told. Earth's catastrophic state was no random disaster, it had been set into motion by their own kind, driven by greed, ignorance, or desperation. "So, what happens now?" Vera asked, her voice small but filled with determination. "Can it be stopped? Can Earth be saved?" The figure's gaze softened, as if it had anticipated this question. "It is not a matter of saving Earth," it said quietly. "The damage is done. The planet will continue to tear itself apart. But there is a way to restore balance. There is a way to end the war between the forces that have been awakened." Xynar felt a flicker of hope. "How? What do we need to do?" The figure paused, and for a moment, the air grew heavy, thick with the weight of centuries. "You must return the relic to its rightful place, deep beneath the earth, where it was once buried. Only then can the forces it has awakened be quelled. But beware, the forces that guard the relic will not let it go without a fight." The tension in the room skyrocketed. They had come this far, only to learn that their true mission was far more dangerous than they could have imagined. A relic, a source of unimaginable power, guarded by forces that would stop at nothing to protect it. "We'll need to prepare," Xynar said, his voice steady, though his heart was racing. "How do we reach this place?" The figure's expression darkened. "I will guide you," it said. "But know this, time is running out. The longer you wait, the stronger the forces guarding the relic become. You may not survive what awaits you, but your species must make the choice. You are the last hope for restoring balance, or for ensuring Earth's ultimate destruction." Xynar turned to his crew, his expression resolute. The path ahead would be fraught with peril, but there was no turning back. Earth's fate rested in their hands. "We have no choice," he said. "We're going after the relic. For Earth, and for humanity." The air in the cavern grew colder with every step they took. Xynar's breath was visible, a faint mist that vanished into the dark void ahead. The walls of the underground labyrinth they had entered seemed to shift with each passing moment, as though the very rock was alive, reacting to their presence. The distant hum of the relic's power echoed through the stone corridors, growing stronger, more insistent. Xynar, Vera, and the rest of the crew moved cautiously, their steps silent on the uneven ground. The weight of the figure's warning hung over them, time was running out. If they failed to reach the relic and return it to its resting place, Earth would continue to spiral into chaos. The further they ventured into the depths, the more disorienting their surroundings became. The air was thick, charged with an energy that seemed to vibrate against their skin. Every few steps, strange symbols appeared on the walls, glowing faintly in the dark, like forgotten languages from a long-lost civilization. Zynar couldn't help but feel the creeping sense that they were intruding in a place where no living being was meant to tread. "I don't like this," Vera murmured, glancing nervously at the others. "This place feels wrong." Zynar gave her a reassuring glance. "Stay focused. We're close." As they ventured deeper, the passageways grew narrower. Jagged rocks jutted from the walls, forcing the crew to maneuver around them carefully. The low hum grew louder, reverberating through their bodies, filling the air with an almost unbearable pressure. It was as though the relic itself was aware of their approach, testing their resolve. Suddenly, the passage opened into a vast, circular chamber, its ceiling lost in the shadows above. At the center of the room stood an altar, an ancient stone structure that seemed to pulse with the same energy they had been tracking. The relic was there, its form indistinct, wrapped in a halo of crackling energy that shimmered like lightning trapped in a jar. Zynar's heart raced as he approached the altar, the rest of the crew following close behind. His eyes were fixed on the relic, a feeling of both awe and dread settling deep in his chest. This was it. The source of Earth's downfall and its potential salvation. "What now?" Vera asked, her voice low as she reached for the weapon strapped to her side, her instincts telling her to be prepared for whatever might come next. Zynar held up a hand, signaling for her to stop. "We take it carefully," he said, his voice tense. "We don't know what will happen when we touch it. We have no idea what kind of protection it might have." No sooner had he finished speaking than the ground beneath their feet trembled. The relic's energy surged, crackling in the air like static, and the hum grew into a violent roar. It was as though the very chamber was coming to life, resisting their presence, fighting against the intrusion. Then, from the shadows around the chamber, figures emerged, tall, ethereal beings, cloaked in mist, their eyes glowing with a cold, otherworldly light. They were the guardians, the ancient protectors of the relic. Each one moved with a grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics, their forms shifting, as though they were more shadow than substance. Zynar's crew instinctively drew their weapons, but the guardians did not attack. They simply stood in place, their eyes fixed on the crew, watching them with an unsettling stillness. "You will not take it," one of the guardians said, its voice echoing in Zynar's mind, a cold, detached tone that seemed to come from all directions at once. "The relic is not for your kind to possess. It is beyond you." Zynar's pulse quickened. This was the moment he had feared, the moment when everything could unravel. "We don't want to possess it," he said, his voice firm. "We just need to return it to its resting place. It's the only way to save Earth. The balance must be restored." The guardian's eyes flickered, as if weighing his words. Then, the room shook again, and the temperature plummeted, the air turning heavy with an oppressive force. The guardians began to advance, their forms shifting with each step, growing more solid, more menacing. "No one can undo what has been done," another guardian said, its voice a hiss of regret. "The fabric of this world has already been torn. You cannot put it back together." Zynar felt a surge of frustration. "We don't have a choice. We must try." With a sudden motion, he reached out, his hand brushing against the relic. The instant his fingers touched it, the energy in the room exploded, sending a shockwave that threw them all to the ground. The guardians shrieked, their forms unraveling, and the ground beneath Zynar's feet cracked open, revealing an endless chasm of light. Zynar's heart pounded in his chest as he scrambled to his feet. He could hear Vera calling out to him, but his focus was solely on the relic. Its power was immense, overwhelming, but he could feel it, deep within him, a faint pulse, a rhythm that matched his own heartbeat. The relic was calling to him. It was alive. "This is it," Zynar whispered, stepping forward. "The final choice. Earth's fate is in our hands." The explosion of energy from the relic sent shockwaves through the chamber, rattling the very foundation of the ancient structure. Zynar's body jerked backward as though he had been struck by an invisible force, crashing into the jagged walls of the cavern. His vision blurred, and for a moment, the world around him seemed to twist and fade. The air grew thick with a charged, oppressive heat, as though the very atmosphere was bending under the weight of the relic's power. He could hear the distant echoes of Vera's voice, though they sounded muffled, as if coming from far away. "Zynar," she called, her voice trembling with urgency. "Get up. We need to go." Shaking his head to clear the disorientation, Zynar pushed himself to his feet, his chest heaving as he fought to steady himself. He looked around, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The Guardians were no longer ethereal wisps, they had solidified into towering, ghostly figures, their eyes glowing with a searing intensity that could burn through stone. Their forms now radiated an almost tangible malice. "You have disturbed the relic," one of them said, its voice low and resonant, like the sound of thunder rolling through the mountains. "You have broken the sacred bond. Now, you must pay the price." Zynar's heart raced as he realized the gravity of what he had just done. In his haste to save Earth, he had violated something much older, much more powerful than he could have ever imagined. The relic wasn't just a tool, it was a force, a living entity bound to the very fabric of existence itself. And by touching it, he had triggered something irreversible. "We didn't mean to," Zynar began, but the Guardian silenced him with a flick of its hand. The force of the gesture sent him stumbling backward. "Intentions do not matter here," the Guardian intoned. "The relic's power cannot be controlled by your kind. You must face the consequences." Zynar clenched his fists, struggling to maintain his composure. The room was spinning, and the energy from the relic was becoming unbearable. It felt as though the very air was pushing against him, suffocating him. His crew was scattered around the chamber, their faces etched with fear and confusion, but their resolve was still strong. They had come too far to give up now. "We're not leaving without the relic," Zynar said through gritted teeth. "We're here to save Earth, not destroy it. We have no choice. You have to help us." For a moment, the Guardians were silent, their glowing eyes narrowing as they studied him. Then, the largest Guardian, the one who had spoken first, raised a hand, and the chamber fell into an eerie stillness. The energy from the relic seemed to pulse in time with his movements. "You speak of saving Earth, but you fail to understand the true cost," the Guardian said, its voice now softer, almost sorrowful. "The relic is not a tool to be wielded by mortals. It is a safeguard, a force that keeps the balance between worlds. To use it is to disrupt the very order of life itself. And once disrupted, there is no turning back." Zynar's mind raced as he tried to comprehend the enormity of what was being said. They hadn't just stumbled upon a relic, they had found the heart of a cosmic equilibrium. By trying to wield it, they were risking everything, not just for Earth, but for the entire universe. "So, what do we do now?" Vera asked, her voice tight with fear. She stood beside Zynar, her weapon lowered, but her hands still trembling slightly. The Guardian's eyes flickered for a moment, as though considering her words. Then, it spoke again. "There is a way to restore the balance," it said, its voice now tinged with an edge of warning. "But it will require a sacrifice." Zynar's pulse quickened. What kind of sacrifice? The Guardian did not answer immediately. Instead, it raised its arm, pointing to the relic at the center of the chamber. The crackling energy surrounding it intensified, its glow blinding. You must choose, the Guardian said finally, its tone low. You can either return the relic to its resting place, and with it, Earth's salvation. Or, you can attempt to wield its power, but know that the consequences will be irreversible. The choice was stark, and the weight of it was crushing. If they returned the relic, Earth might survive, but they would lose everything they had fought for, everything they had risked. But if they chose to wield its power, they might change the course of history, but at what cost? Xynar could feel the weight of every soul on Earth pressing down on him. He thought of his family, his crew, and the planet they were trying so desperately to protect. He thought of the lives that hung in the balance. What's the price of wielding the power? Xynar asked, his voice barely a whisper. The Guardian's expression softened. The price is your humanity. The relic will take what it needs to keep the balance, and what it needs is a soul, your soul. You will become a part of the relic, bound to it forever. But you will have the power to reshape the future. The room fell into a heavy silence. Xynar's mind swirled with the possibilities, the potential outcomes, each more terrifying than the last. He glanced at Vera and the rest of the crew, each of them sharing the same look of uncertainty. There was no easy answer here. There has to be another way, Vera said, her voice strained. We can't just give up. The Guardian shook its head. There is no other way. The relic cannot be tamed, only returned, or claimed. You must choose, now. Xynar's heart thundered in his chest as the words from the Guardian reverberated in his mind. He was torn. The fate of Earth was hanging in the balance, and every choice before him seemed more impossible than the last. What was the point of saving the planet if the cost was his humanity? If he became part of the relic, bound to it for eternity, what would that even mean? And yet, could he truly live with himself knowing that he had abandoned his duty to protect everything he loved? The air in the chamber grew thick with tension as the Guardian's presence loomed over them. The silence felt like a heavy weight pressing down on Xynar's shoulders, each second stretching longer than the last. He could feel the eyes of his crew on him, waiting for him to decide, but how could he make a decision when the stakes were so high? The relic at the center of the room pulsed with an almost hypnotic rhythm, its energy now a constant hum that seemed to reverberate deep within Xynar's bones. It called to him, pulling him closer, as though it recognized him as the one who had unlocked its power. He could almost hear its whispers, faint, incomprehensible, but undeniably present. They were promises, temptations, visions of unimaginable strength, control, and power. I can't let you do this, Vera's voice broke through his thoughts, sharp and desperate. Xynar, you don't have to sacrifice yourself. There has to be another way. There always is. Her words cut through the confusion clouding his mind, but they only left him more conflicted. She was right. There had to be another way. They had always believed that humanity's greatest strength was their ability to find another path, to push through obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Was this just a test? A challenge they could overcome with determination and resolve? Xynar's eyes met hers, searching for some kind of clarity, some spark of hope that he was missing. She was terrified, yes, but there was also a glimmer of faith in her expression, faith in him. She believed in him, even when everything seemed impossible. Xynar, please, Vera whispered, her hand trembling as she reached out toward him. The Guardian's voice echoed again, like a distant thunderclap. The time for hesitation has passed. You must decide now, or face the consequences of your inaction. Xynar's mind raced, his thoughts tangled in a web of doubt and responsibility. Was the sacrifice worth it? Was the survival of Earth worth losing himself? Suddenly, he understood. The relic wasn't just a tool. It was a mirror of humanity, its greatest strength, but also its greatest flaw. The power to reshape the future, to control life itself, was a dangerous temptation. It was a temptation that had destroyed civilizations before, and it would destroy them too if they weren't careful. But it wasn't about control. It wasn't about wielding power. It was about understanding humanity's true strength, its resilience. Xynar knew, deep down, that Earth's survival didn't depend on a relic, or on one person's sacrifice. It depended on the people who fought for it, on their willingness to sacrifice for one another. "No," Xynar said firmly, his voice resolute. "I won't sacrifice myself. Not for power, not for control. The only way to save Earth is through humanity's strength, not by giving away who we are." The Guardians did not respond immediately. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light as they studied Xynar, as though they were weighing his words against something ancient and unknowable. Then, as if sensing his resolve, the largest Guardian stepped forward, its ethereal form shifting like smoke in the wind. "You have chosen," the Guardian said softly. "You have chosen the way of humanity. And for that, Earth shall be spared." The chamber seemed to hold its breath as the energy from the relic began to stabilize, its wild pulses calming. The Guardians lowered their hands, their expressions now less menacing, almost peaceful. The force field surrounding the relic flickered, then vanished completely. "The relic will return to its resting place," the Guardian continued. "The balance will be restored. But remember this, humanity's true strength lies not in what it can control, but in what it can endure. In its ability to rise, again and again, even in the face of impossible odds." Xynar felt the weight of the decision lift from his shoulders, but the truth of the Guardian's words lingered. Humanity's strength wasn't about power, it was about heart, resilience, and the ability to rise above even the greatest challenges. With the relic now dormant, its destructive power sealed away, Xynar and his crew stood in the heart of the chamber, a quiet realization settling in. They had not won through strength or violence. They had won because they had refused to give up, because they had chosen to protect the very thing that made them human, each other. The crew began to move toward the exit, their footsteps light despite the gravity of what they had just faced. Earth was safe. But there was something else, something more important, that they had learned. They had learned the value of sacrifice, of choosing the hard path, not for power or glory, but for the greater good. As they made their way out of the ancient chamber, Xynar glanced back one last time at the relic. It was no longer just an object of power. It was a reminder. A reminder that sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones that keep us true to who we are. And that, perhaps, was the greatest power of all. The battle had shaken the earth to its core. Cities stood in eerie silence, their people staring up at the sky where the final echoes of the conflict had just faded. The sinister force, an ancient entity that had manipulated humanity for millennia, was no more. The aliens had played their role, but in the end, it was humanity itself that had delivered the final blow. The lead alien observer, still stunned by what had transpired, turned to his team. "They should not have survived this," he said, his voice laced with awe. "And yet, they have. Humanity had faced the impossible and won. But the question remained, what now? The true revelation." As the dust settled, the aliens gathered to analyze what had just occurred. Their mission had been to uncover the truth about Earth's danger, but they had found something far beyond what they expected. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology, nor its brutality, but something far more powerful, the ability to change. Throughout its history, Earth had been shaped by war, conflict, and hardship. But no matter how dark things became, humans had always fought to rise above it. Even when manipulated by an unseen force, they had still chosen to build, to love, and to protect. It was this ability to grow, to turn suffering into strength, that made Earth a death world. Not because it was a place of destruction, but because it was a place where no force, natural or artificial, could ever truly conquer the human spirit. Humanity's decision. As the aliens deliberated on their next course of action, humanity stood at a crossroads. Now aware of the force that had shaped their history, they had a choice. Continue down the same path, repeating the cycle of conflict and survival. Or take control of their own destiny and build a future free from manipulation. At first, fear and uncertainty spread. Could they trust themselves? Was humanity truly capable of change, or had the ancient force merely delayed their inevitable self-destruction? Then, a moment of hope emerged. A child, no older than 10, stepped forward among the gathering crowds, lifting a small flag that had fallen during the battle. A simple act, but one that ignited something deep in the hearts of all who watched. Despite everything, humanity still stood. And as long as they stood, they had the power to shape their own future. The alien's departure. The lead alien, now forever changed by what he had witnessed, turned to his crew. We came here fearing what Earth could become. But now I wonder, have we been looking at it all wrong? He gazed down at the planet one last time before stepping onto his ship. Perhaps Earth was never meant to be feared. Perhaps it is meant to be understood. With that, the alien fleet departed, leaving humanity with the knowledge that they were finally free to define their own destiny.